and we're going on to polymorphism. Polymorphism means having many forms, existing in many forms, and this is the ability of a message to be displayed in different forms. In programming terms, it is the ability to reuse a method and its name by changing the method signature. In the first class, I explained method signature as just the method name, the return type, and the number of arguments that it is going to have. And this is mostly used in a class diagram or in documentations. And you can change the method signature, or you can write another different code by overriding or overloading the method. So these are two types of polymorphism, overriding and overloading. So an example of polymorphism, a practical example is a woman who can be a mother, a wife, and a businesswoman. So in these three different scenarios, she has different behaviors that she possesses or she displays when she's in these three different situations. As a mother, she's different from the way she's a wife, and she's also different from the way she's a businesswoman and interacts with maybe her colleagues or her staff or people or clients or things like that. So that is an example of polymorphism, having different behaviors in different situations. We've got two main types of polymorphism: the compile time or static binding or early binding polymorphism, or the run type or dynamic binding or late binding, which is also overriding polymorphism. So compile time, I just want to give a quick definition of what compile time is. Compile time is when you write your code into your IDE. So this is the instance your code is entered and is converted to something that can be run by your compiler. And your runtime is the point at which what you've written is running. So there are two different types. They're often misused and they can be quite confusing. Yeah, this is what compile time and runtime means. So the first type is compile time polymorphism, and this is achieved through overloading. We've got three types of overloading, which is the method overloading, the operator overloading, and constructor overloading. In method overloading, I explained this in the previous class, which means method within a class having the same name but different parameter list. So this example here, we've got three methods, different parameters. The first one has only one parameter, which is an integer. The second one has two parameters, which are both integers, and the third one has two parameters as well, but the parameter type, the data type is different, which is a double, two doubles. And how Java or the compiler will know which one or depends on the number of parameters you put in your main class. So this is how Java will know, like if you put in one parameter, it would go to this method and say, oh, you're trying to call this method. If you put in two parameters, of which two of them are integers, it will say, oh, this is the second method you're trying to call. Or if it's two doubles you put, you'll say, oh, it's the third method you're trying to call. So this is how Java understands which method to call. We'll do an example of this method overloading now. So we've got a class called Arithmetic. It takes in three methods, and we'll do that now. So I'm going to go into my class tab. I'm using my IDE, create a new class, call it Arithmetic. And in my new class, I'll define three methods. So public void multiply, takes in one parameter, int num1. Now just say num 1 times num 1. I'll put it in an integer equals integer put results. And I'll just print out the result to see what it gives me. And I'm going to copy and paste and just change what needs to be changed. Control C V V. So I'm getting errors because they are the exact same type. But if I change the parameter, I put this to 2 integers in num2, and I change this to double. Double num2. Now just change the calculations here. So my multiply has 2 integers, so I want you to multiply those 2 integers and give me the result. And my multiply here has 2 doubles, so I want my result to be double. And multiply 1 by number 2. So I'm going to make this easier, and I'll just put results 2, result 3, so we can differentiate result 1. If I go into my main class and comment this one and create a new arithmetic object, call it arithmetic equals new arithmetic. I can choose whichever one I want to call based on the parameter list. So if I choose the first one, which only takes in 1 integer, and I choose that multiply, and I put in 1 integer 2, compiler will go into, when it is running, compiler will get to this point and go into multiply and say, oh, this is the multiply that the programmer wants, because the programmer has put in only 1 parameter. So that is what the programmer would like to call. And if I run this method, I see that my result is 4 because I asked the compiler to multiply the 2 numbers twice. So 2 times 2 is 4. If I change this and I put another integer 4, compiler will go into the arithmetic class and ask for and check for the one that has 2 parameters. Oh, this is one that has 2 parameters because it has 2 integers and the programmer has inputted 2 integers. So if I run this, I should get 8. So I see that my result is 8. If I come in here and I just put something like hello or a string, my program will go into an error because there's no method defined in the arithmetic class that takes in an integer and a string. So what you define is what you must call. You cannot call what you've not defined. If not, you need to define it and then call it. So I'll change this to a new double, so 3.2, 4.8. If I run this, compiler will go into the arithmetic class and check for the one that takes in 2 doubles, which is the third method, and we can call it. Can run our application and we should get the result of that, which is 15.36. So this is an example of method overloading in Java, where you can define a method with the same method name but different parameters. This helps you to to separate your code and to define different things for the same method. The second type of overloading is the constructor overloading, and this allows for multiple constructors in a single class for objects with different number of data type or arguments. So if you got a class, this arithmetic class, we can create different arithmetic objects based on how we want it to look like. So if we've got 3 fields here, we can make our arithmetic create just a simple object without the strings, or create an object that takes in the 3 parameters, or create an object that just takes in the integer and only the integer will be required. We'll create that now for us to see. And since it's still the arithmetic class, we'll just leave it as it is, and we'll create some new variables, some new fields. This is public, we'll make it public as 1. Public integer num1, public integer num2, public string text. And then we'll create some constructors. So we'll create a constructor that takes in no parameter. And like I said in the previous lesson, a constructor is created using the public keyword, and it should be the same name as the class. So it doesn't take in anything. This will be like a default constructor and you'll just print out no parameters. And then we'll create another one, public arithmetic, that takes in all my fields, and then I'll make it integer num1, integer num2, integer string text. Now I'll assign these parameters to my field list. So I'll use that using the this keyword, which specified that it belongs to this class, is this field I need. This equals num1. This dot num2 equals this num2. And this dot text equals text. Now create a new I'll create a new constructor which will only take in integer, the first integer. Calls num1. Now I'll just say print out only takes in plus this dot num1. So I'm going to call this now in my main class, and I'll delete this one. So I've created a new object called arithmetic, and I assigned it to not give me any parameter. So what the compiler does is it goes to your arithmetic class and checks for the constructor that doesn't have a parameter, which is this one, and prints it out no parameter. So this is what the application should print out. So if I run my application, you can see it prints out no parameter. But if I go ahead and change it to take in 3 parameters, so I'm going to put 2, 4, 2, 6, hello. We'll make it say something like, I printed out all 3 variables, all 3 fields. And if we run it, the compiler will go into the class and check for the constructor that takes in 3 parameters. So if I run this, you can see it says I printed out all 3 fields because this is the constructor that I called. And at the same, likewise, if I put in only 1 parameter, which is just 1 integer, and I just delete all these out, I print in only 1 parameter. If I put in 2 parameters, the constructor throws an error because there's no constructor defined in arithmetic class that takes in 2 parameters. The only constructors are the one that takes in no parameter, the one that takes in 3 parameters, and the one that takes in 1 parameter. So it's going to throw an error because that constructor is not found. So I'm going to put it to take in only 1 parameter, and it should print out only takes in this number. So you can see that in my output it says only takes in number 2 because I define number 2. If I change this to number 200, it will print only 200. It will print only 200. So this is an example of constructor overloading. You can define as much constructors as you want to be able to create different kinds of objects that will perform different things in your application. So the other type of overloading is the operator overloading, and this is not really something you can do because you cannot explicitly define what you want an operator in Java to do, because Java doesn't support it, so it cannot be explicitly overloaded. However, we've got one operator in Java that can be overloaded, provided by Java, and this is the plus operator. It's an implicitly overloaded operator by Java based on what kind of argument you pass, what kind of operation you want it to perform. I'm sure you've seen it before because this plus can be used to add 2 integers or 2 doubles or 2 numbers, and can also be used to concatenate strings. So you can add strings together. If we'll do some examples soon, but if I say 20 plus 30, it would print out 50 because Java identifies these 2 numbers as integers. It doesn't identify it as string. But if I print out this, we'll see that it gives us a different output. So we'll first print out this 20 plus 30 and see how the plus operator is used. So we'll go into our main method, comment this one out, and we'll just simply print out 20 plus 30, and it'll give us 50. Because this Java, the compiler identifies these 2 integers, these 2 numbers of integers, and then adds them together. So it depends on the kind of arguments that is passed that the compiler will know, oh, should I add or should I concatenate? So this gives me 50. If I go ahead to concatenate my strings using the plus operator, and I say something like hello plus blue sky, and I run this, I get hello blue sky because it concatenates these strings for me, adds them together, and it forms a sentence with it. If I add another one like plus 20 plus 30, you can see that this gives us hello blue sky citadel 2030, and it doesn't identify this as an integer because it's been identifying this hello, it's a string, this blue sky is a string. So the compiler just automatically assumes that the 20 and the 30 is a string because you're basically kind of adding them together, so you're joining them together. So the compiler just joins hello plus blue sky plus 20 plus 30 to form hello blue sky 2030. If you want to separate this and make it print out hello blue sky 50, you can just define an integer, maybe integer results equals 20 plus 30, and then use the results here plus results. And if you print, I need to put my semicolon here. If you print it, so that gives you a hello blue sky 50. So depending on how you use the plus operator, that makes it do different things. You can either add numbers together or double numbers together, because you can do double as well. If I put this to double and I put 22.0 2.5 plus 30.5 and I add it, I'll get hello blue sky 33.0 because it is a double. So these are just different types of overloading in Java, the compile time polymorphism. The next one is the runtime polymorphism, and this is a process to which this is where overriding takes place. So if you want to change a method that is written somewhere, you override that method and you put your own implementation in it. So this is achieved through method overriding. And for overriding to take place, an inheritance has to take place first. So there needs to be a relationship between the two classes. Either one is the parent or one is the child before overriding has to take place. We have some rules for overriding. The method must have the same name as the parent class. The method must also have the same parameter as the parent class, and there must be an inheritance relationship, a parent-child relationship between the two classes for overriding to take place. And the method in the parent class is the overriding method, because it's the method that is being overridden by the method in the child class, which is called the overriding method. It is the method that is overriding the method defined in the parent class. And to make sure that you know which method you are overriding, because there are sometimes that we might define methods that have the same name or can make a mistake, and you're like, oh, my method is not overriding. Why? You can, maybe because you made a mistake, you made a typo error, or you've made just some silly mistakes. Like, we can make silly mistakes in programming. You can use the override keyword. Java uses it for you, but for you to be sure that, oh yeah, I'm actually overriding something, you can use the override keyword, because IntelliJ actually does this for you automatically. But if you make a mistake and IntelliJ or the compiler cannot find it, you can just write override, and it throws an error, and you can see that, oh yeah, okay, I've made a mistake, I'm going to change that now. So you can put the override keyword, and we'll just do an example of overriding in Java. So for overriding, I'm going to use the vehicle class as an example. And for the vehicle class, we've actually done a bit of overriding, because I have overridden the method in the vehicle class here. So I've got a method called honk, and this method just prints out vehicle is honking. But like I said earlier, oh, I want it to know, I don't want it to say vehicle is honking, I want it to say my own car is honking. So it gets the brand of your car, or you can put in your brand here, and it says brand is running. But because you can't access brand from the outside world, you need to put in get brand, because brand is private and can only be accessed by this class. So you need to make it a habit of putting your variables in getters and setters and accessing your variables from there. So I'm going to say, oh, I don't want it to say, I also want it to say oh, I can drive fast. So this is the same method but it's different implementation, because I obviously, first of all, we first have an inheritance relationship. The car is extending the vehicle is the parent class, and the car is the child class. So I can use the method that was defined in my parent class. And I'm changing it because I don't want to just say vehicle is honking. I want to say my car is running and I can drive fast. So if you look at your right hand side, you see this blue thing with an up arrow. That shows that it is overriding this method. And this shows that, oh, the overriding method, it is in car. But if you want to show it, you can just put as override. So it shows that, oh, this there. So mistakenly, if I put, oh, honk, you can see it throws an error and it says cannot find any method like that. Like this method does not override method from its superclass. So you can say, oh, I made a mistake. Okay, let me change it to honks. So you can either not put it there and Java will put it there for you, or you can put it there yourself just to make sure, just to be safe and to make sure that your program is doing the right thing. If I go to my main class and I create a car, create a new car, equals new car, and make it an Audi. And I say Audi dot set my model to be Audi C45, and Audi dot set brand to be Audi 2.0, and Audi dot set color to be red. Also, in the car class, we can use the method in the vehicle class. So we can say get brand plus, we'll just concatenate plus get model. Get model from the vehicle class is running. So if I go here and I say, okay, let me honk my Audi, and I run it, I can see that Audi 2.0 or the C45 is running. I can drive fast. So it ignores the method that was declared in vehicle and then uses the method that the car wants to use that was declared in car. So instead of using the method that was declared in vehicle, the method has been overridden by this honk method declared in your car. So this is what your car prints out for you instead of this method. If you don't override your method, so if you uncomment this, if you comment this rather, you would see that it would only use this honk method here. And if we run it, you can see that it just says vehicle is honking. So overriding helps you to give your class personalized definition and implementations. And this is useful if you have different kind of vehicles, like your bus, your trucks, your different kind of vehicles that we have. You can override the method to specify or personalize it for each class. We're going to go into the keyword called final. So final keyword can be used in variables, method, and classes. And once you've declared something final, it cannot be changed. So like the word final, it is final, you cannot change it. So if you declare a variable called final in A20, you cannot change that variable. That's the variable that is going to have till you delete that program or you destroy the application or something. If you also declare a method called final in a parent class, for example, the child class cannot override it because it cannot change the implementation because it is final. So the child class just uses the method as it is and cannot change it or personalize it. And if you want to declare a class final, you cannot inherit that class. So the class is just declared and just cannot have children. And like I said, yeah, if you declare a class as final, methods in that class are final by default because they cannot be overridden. So if you declare something final, the methods are final. However, the variables are not final by default unless you yourself actually explicitly define the variables as final. So we'll look at an example of final. And in this place, I'll just declare that's final. Now I have to initialize it. So I'll say my car would always be red. So as you can see, I got an error because I cannot assign another value to my color. So I cannot set my color. So this is a variable. This is what my color would be. Will always be red. I cannot change it. So I can only get the color. And if I declare another, let's say I declare this final, my method final. Let's say vehicle is honking, period, cannot be changed. If I uncomment that one, you see that I get an error because it is final. It says honk cannot override honk in vehicle because the overriding method is final, so I have to delete it off. So if I go back to my main class and I try to see, I get an error because I cannot set my color. So I can only get the color. I can only say get color. And if I print out this method and I say honk, it should only get my color. Let me bring out. So I want you to print out the color of my car and I want you to honk. So you can see that the color of my car is red and my vehicle is honking, period. I cannot override that method because it has been declared final. So this is how the final keyword works. It's very useful if you want to declare a variable that will be constant throughout the application. But if your variable is going to change because it's an object and you want it to change, you probably would not declare your keyword as final. You will not declare the variable as final or the method as final if you want multiple implementation. But if you just want one single implementation and it can't be changed, you should use the word final for your variables, methods, or classes.